I didn't cry when I heard him say it, not even a tear, but something inside me, something soft and lived in, folded, like a bedsheet still warm from the dryer. He didn't raise his voice. I remember thinking, that's what stung the most, because when someone whispers that you're a burden, it doesn't echo, it lingers. If this found you when everything was too quiet, some stories were meant to be heard in silence. The house used to smell like cinnamon and lemon soap. Now, it just smells like drywall and Claire's eucalyptus diffuser, sterile, forced, like everything else around here. The kitchen was cold that evening, not from the rain, from the silence. Ryan stirred his coffee like it was a ritual. Claire didn't look up from her phone, and I stood right there, invisible between the refrigerator and the past. The silverware drawer slammed shut harder than I meant. But no one flinched. I wandered upstairs and opened the hall closet, the one that still had Henry's umbrella. He'd never let me throw it out, even though the handle was cracked. Still keeps the rain off, doesn't it? He used to say. God, I miss when men fixed things. The suitcase was wedged behind the board games they hadn't touched since moving in. I ran my hand over the old leather. It smelled like mothballs, and the airport in Barcelona. Back when I was someone, the deed was in the nightstand, under the yellowed envelope labeled important. Funny how permanent ink looks when it's not in your son's handwriting. My name, Eleanor Faye Whitaker, still etched in legal black, still owner, still here. But when your child calls you extra weight, even home doesn't feel like yours anymore. I didn't tell anyone, didn't write a note, didn't wait for the next storm to pass. I just sat on the edge of the bed, quiet still, staring at the paisley curtains we picked out 12 years ago. I wondered if they'd even notice when I was gone. I packed 3 blouses, my toothbrush, and Henry's old lighter, the one I kept hidden in the spice rack behind the cumin. Not because I smoke, but because some things feel like him, warm, dangerous, comforting, like love, before it turns into something else. I didn't feel brave, just hollow in a new shape. Downstairs, the floor creaked like it was trying to warn me. Ryan's shoes sat by the door, same spot, same angle, like a display, and still, I hesitated. For a second, I imagined opening the fridge, taking out the roast I'd marinated, and throwing it at the wall. Let it slide down like my years in this house, slow, messy, ignored. But I didn't. Instead, I took the keys not to their car, to the shed. Outside, the rain had stopped, but everything shimmered, like it hadn't made up its mind. The sky was pewter, the grass was mush under my flats. I walked around the side of the house where the azaleas used to bloom. Now it was just mulch. The front door creaked as I opened it, suitcase in one hand, the deed in the other. No one called out. No one asked, "Where are you going, Mom?" No one asked anything. The hallway clock ticked, like it was counting me down. The world didn't end, but something did. And maybe that's how freedom starts, not with a bang, with a bag. The dawn didn't ask where I was going, and neither did they. That bus station smelled like old coffee and cardboard dreams. My suitcase thumped against my leg like it was reminding me I was still real. I held the deed close, under my coat, like it might vanish if anyone looked too long, that it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like being untied and left afloat. There were 12 of us on that Greyhound, none of us talking. A woman with rollers in her hair, a boy asleep on his backpack, and me, 62, invisible again. But this time, I chose it. The engine rumbled beneath us like a tired heartbeat. Outside, Ohio blurred into itself. Gas stations, water towers, old barns that had already given up. I traced the stitching on my purse, the one Henry bought me when we thought Paris might still happen. The clasp still worked. Some things do. I checked into the motel with cash. The man behind the desk didn't ask questions, just slid me a key with the number peeling off. Room 6 smelled like pine cleaner and loneliness, but the silence didn't choke me here. It, listened. I laid the deed on the dresser next to the lamp, put Henry's lighter beside it like anchors in a storm I hadn't named yet. Then sat on the bed and did absolutely nothing. No phone, no noise, just still. At 3:12 a.m. Claire texted, "Are you okay?" No question mark. I stared at the glowing screen like it might explain her. Typed, "Just needed air. I'm okay." Then deleted okay and replaced it with space. Didn't owe her honesty. Just distance. I found a diner 2 blocks down, one of those places where the eggs taste like the grill, and the waitress doesn't smile unless you tip first. The Formica table was chipped. My coffee came in a mug with lipstick someone else had worn. I didn't complain. I just wiped it clean and drank anyway. Across the room, a man in a corduroy jacket watched me. Not the curious kind of watching, the still kind. The kind that doesn't blink. My breath stilled. Fear, I realized, doesn't knock, it just arrives. He stood, walked slowly. I gripped my purse tighter, felt Henry's lighter in the side pocket. It wasn't a weapon, but it was his dot, and suddenly, that was enough. He stopped at my table, held out his hand, palm open, empty. You dropped this, he said. The diner's light flickered above him, making shadows swim on the floor like they didn't know where to land. My heart didn't race, it paused. The kind of pause where you decide, fight, flee, or speak. I looked down at his empty hand, and for the first time since I left, I realized something. I hadn't dropped anything, but I was done being picked up. Some towns aren't on maps. They're where lost things go to breathe, or to die quietly. I wasn't sure which Riverbend would be. The bus pulled away without fanfare. No welcome sign, no chatter. Just the low hum of streetlights that blinked like they were running out of energy. The sidewalk was cracked, the buildings leaned, and still I exhaled for the first time in days. The boarding house had peeling shutters and the scent of someone else's secrets. Inside, everything was too quiet, like the walls were deciding whether to trust me. A woman with salt and pepper hair and a stare like a warning bell appeared behind the counter. "Ava," she said, handing me a brass room key. No smile. Number questions. She didn't need to ask what I was running from. She already knew. Room 4 was small. One narrow bed, floral curtains, a chipped vanity mirror that caught the light just wrong. There was a blank journal on the nightstand. No label, just waiting. I placed my purse beside it, set the deed between the pages like a bookmark. I wasn't ready to turn. Riverbend had 2 stoplights, one thrift shop, and a library that still used cards and stamps. The chapel stood crooked at the edge of town, its bell tower leaning like it had something to confess. I wandered all of it. Didn't talk to anyone, didn't take pictures, but the silence, it stayed close, like an old dog that didn't trust strangers anymore. That night, I sat at the desk under the weak glow of a mismatched lamp and opened the journal. At first, I didn't write anything, just ran my fingers over the page like it might understand me better than my son ever had. Then, slowly, I wrote his name, Ryan. The ink sank too fast, like even the paper didn't want to hold it. A memory knocked, uninvited, sharp. Ryan, at 15, angry. He'd shattered a photo frame after I grounded him for skipping school. Said I loved his dead father more than I loved him. I'd knelt to pick up the glass. He'd stepped over it like it was air. I closed the journal, stared at the wall, still, not crying, not even blinking. Later, I pulled the deed from where I'd tucked it. On the back, I began writing names. Henry Ryan Mand. Just as I was about to stop, I saw it, under my name. Faint, but there. Ryan Whitaker. Not in my handwriting, no. This was slanted, almost rushed. The signature slightly off-center like it was pretending to belong. The corners of the paper curled in my hand like it had heard too much. A forged signature, on a house that was mine. And suddenly, this nowhere town wasn't just escape, it was witness. It felt wrong to feel unburdened. As if joy needed permission. Like I'd stolen it from someone more deserving. Maybe that's what motherhood does, makes you believe you have to earn air. But that morning, I inhaled like it belonged to me. Ava told me the thrift shop was always short on hands. I didn't ask if she meant mine. I just showed up. The bell above the door jangled like it was surprised to see me. Inside smelled like faded detergent and old plastic memory and decay bottled on shelves. She was there. Behind the register, slouched, unreadable. 17, maybe. Eyes like black ink and boots too big for her body. Name tag crooked. Maya. She didn't speak at first, just watched me sort donated scarves like I was touching something sacred. Then she muttered, "You fold things like they matter." I said, "Maybe they do." And just like that, a breath of something opened between us. We found each other by the record bin. She pulled out Nina Simone. I picked up Leonard Cohen. "Too sad," she said. "So are some mornings," I replied. Her laugh was short, reluctant, like her body didn't quite believe it. Later she handed me a poetry book, dog-eared, stained with coffee. Said, You can keep it. No one checks it out anyway. I opened to a line that read, "My silence is not empty. It's just full of answers I stopped giving." I didn't say it out loud, but I felt it. Like a bruise I'd stopped pressing. There was something wild in Maya, not dangerous, just feral from being caged too long. When I offered to walk her home, she shook her head. "You're the only person who doesn't treat me like a project." I didn't respond, just slipped a torn notepad paper from my purse and wrote down my number, just in case. I said. She nodded but didn't take it, so I tucked it in the front pocket of her coat. That night, back in room 4, I sat with the poetry book and the deed beside me. The lamp buzzed. Outside, wind moved the curtains just enough to make the shadows breathe. I stared at the ceiling, still, not sad, not hopeful, just ... open. I thought about Maya's words, how motherhood can make you invisible, even to yourself. I remembered the first time Ryan said, "Leave me alone." He was 10. His voice cracked like glass, and I pretended it didn't cut. I had loved him so completely. I forgot where he ended and I began. Maybe that was the betrayal, not his, but mine. I closed the poetry book, slid it into my suitcase beside the journal and Henry's lighter. Everything that felt like me, now in one place. A purse, a paper, a book. Funny how light it all was. I walked back from the diner later that night, a slice of lemon pie boxed in my hand, like a gift to myself. Riverbend's streets were soft with fog, quiet like a prayer. But I felt it. The pull, the awareness, footsteps, measured distant. But there I didn't turn around. I just gripped the box tighter and walked slower. Not afraid, just listening. Because even in nowhere towns, some ghosts follow on foot. How do you mourn a home that's still standing, still perfectly upright, still echoing with conversations you no longer get to finish? Grief doesn't need fire or flood. Sometimes it comes dressed in wallpaper and polite betrayal. The house on Lakewood Drive didn't fall apart. I did. I remember. The day we bought it, Henry held the keys like a promise. "Here's where we'll grow old," he said, kissing my forehead. It smelled like fresh paint and maple, like dreams settling into drywall. There was a red swing in the backyard. I pictured grandkids, birthday balloons, burnt toast on Sunday mornings. I thought legacy was something you built with your hands, but it turns out it can be erased with a pen. Claire moved in like a breeze that never left, too soft to notice at first, then suddenly chilling every corner. She never raised her voice. She didn't have to. She just rearranged things, the furniture, the meals, the space between Ryan and me. I tried not to resent her, tried to believe the lie every woman tells herself. If I stay kind enough, I won't be replaced. But Ryan stopped hugging me, stopped asking what I thought, started saying things like, "Claire just gets it." It's strange, the little betrayals. The silent dinners, the sideways glances when you leave the fridge open too long. I kept setting the table for 3, even when I wasn't invited to sit. That house didn't feel like mine anymore. Just a museum of things I wasn't allowed to touch. Back in Riverbend, I sat with my journal open, the deed beside me, a half-written will fluttering beneath the weight of Henry's lighter. I'd started it the night I found Ryan's forged signature, typed, printed, unsigned. I wasn't sure what I wanted to leave behind, only that I wanted to choose it for once. I wrote a letter to Ryan, not to accuse him, just to tell him who I used to be. I folded it quietly and slid it between the journal pages, didn't seal it, didn't address it. That afternoon, Maya came by early. No knock, just the soft jingle of the front bell and her boots on the stairs. Was folding laundry when I heard the pause, the creak of her stopping just outside the room. Then, "Is this for him?" I turned. She was holding the letter. Her expression wasn't smug, just injured. I nodded, said nothing. She read it, standing by the dresser. Didn't ask if she could. Didn't have to. Her lips moved silently as she read. Then she looked up. "He really said that to you? That you were just extra weight?" I wanted to lie, to soften it, but I just nodded again. She sat down on the bed beside the laundry and picked up one of my folded scarves, ran her thumb along the hem like it might tell her something I hadn't. There was a long pause. Then, quieter than I've ever heard her, "If I disappeared, would you miss me?" And suddenly, I wasn't in Riverbend anymore. I was in that kitchen, with my son, the coffee pot dripping behind us, the smell of garlic still on my fingers, the silence ringing louder than a scream. I looked at Maya, at her chipped nails, at her guarded face, trying so hard not to care. I didn't answer with words. I just took her hand, held it firm, certain like I wished someone had held mine. Paper is power, especially when people think you're weak. Especially when they call you extra weight and smile like they're being merciful. That's the thing about signatures. They don't look like betrayal until you realize they were written without your hand. The courthouse clerk didn't flinch when I slid the deed across the counter. Didn't care that my fingers shook or that my purse held Henry's lighter like a talisman. I added one line, quietly, just beneath my own name. Secondary trustee, Maya Whitaker. Didn't tell her, not yet, because sometimes you give without asking for applause. And because sometimes love doesn't wear your name until it has to. That evening, Ava made tea, the good kind, the kind with honey already stirred in. We sat at her chipped kitchen table while the kettle hissed like it had something to say but never would. I finally said it aloud. I don't think I'll ever go back. She didn't blink, didn't nod, just passed me the cup and said, "Good." Maya came in just before dusk, cheeks flushed from the wind, smelling like the thrift shop in peppermint gum. She dropped her bag by the door, flopped onto the couch, and said, "My dad used to say people like me don't deserve soft things." She didn't look at me when she said it, just stared at the ceiling like the truth lived up there, hiding in the paint. "I left 2 weeks ago," she continued, "took cash from his wallet. Didn't even pack. I just left." Her voice cracked on the word left, like it wasn't built to carry it yet. I watched her, the way her fists stayed clenched even when she wasn't angry, the way her eyes searched mine, as if measuring whether I'd vanish too. "I know what it's like," I said. "To run, to feel like your story was signed by someone else." She tilted her head, smirked a little. "Wanna adopt me?" It was a joke, mostly, but I didn't laugh. I just looked at her, long enough for her smile to flicker, like a light bulb deciding whether to stay on. That night, I sat on the bed, journal open, will still unsigned. I stared at the ceiling, not praying, just waiting. The porch light flickered, then silence, then a car. Its engine didn't shut off. I looked through the curtain. A black sedan rust along the door, idling like it had something to say. A moment later, bang, bang, bang. A man's voice, low but slurred, angry in that familiar, drunken way. "Open the damn door, Maya." And just like that, the papers didn't matter. The tea still after. The folded scarf still sitting in the laundry basket, because danger had a name now. And it knew where she was. Some men don't knock, they break in like memory. Not loud at first, just inevitable. I yanked Maya by the wrist and hissed, "Upstairs, now." She didn't ask questions, didn't even grab her bag, just moved, fast, like she'd done this before. The attic door creaked louder than it should have. I pulled it shut, behind her, and jammed a chair beneath the knob, then called Ava. Her voice was steady. "Police are on the way. Lock everything." Bang, again, and again. "Open the damn door, Maya." His voice was deeper now, slurred but sharp, like a blade that had learned to twist, not cut. I grabbed the fireplace poker. My hand shook, but I held it like a mother holds truth, tight and shaking anyway. Then silence. He stopped banging, stopped yelling. I peeked through the curtain. He was pacing, hands in his hair, then lighting a cigarette. He didn't look drunk anymore. He looked rehearsed. 5 minutes, 10 then sirens. They pulled up like thunder. 2 officers, 1 voice. "Step away from the house, sir." I didn't breathe until they cuffed him, until the sedan drove away, but Maya didn't come down. I climbed the attic stairs, slowly. She sat against the insulation, knees hugged tight, eyes wide open. I didn't say anything, just sat beside her, offered the scarf still draped over my arm. She took it, buried her face. We sat in that quiet for a long time, not talking, not planning, just still. Then, through the muffled cotton, "Am I just extra weight too?" My throat burned. I turned to her. "No," I said. And this time, I let the tears come. "You're the reason I'm still here." Later, downstairs, the sheriff asked gently, "You, her legal guardian?" I hesitated. My eyes found the unsigned will, the journal, the letter. "Not yet," I said. He nodded. Said I'd need to be. Soon after they left, I walked into the bathroom, closed the door, looked in the mirror, and stared, not at age, not at wrinkles, at the eyes, like someone had moved into them when I wasn't watching, and now they were mine again. I never thought love would come in the shape of a signature. But there I was, signing forms not for marriage, not for inheritance, but for guardianship. The paperwork felt heavier than a wedding vow, because this time I wasn't giving my life to someone, I was protecting theirs. The woman at the desk looked over her glasses. "You're over 60, she said. "Why now?" I didn't flinch, didn't smile, just leaned in and answered, because no one else ever showed up. She didn't ask again. That night, I boiled water for tea, the same chipped kettle, same scarf draped over the chair like it had rights now. Maya hovered in the hallway like a question no one had asked properly. "You don't have to," she said. "I mean, I'll figure it out." I turned, held the mug between both hands like it was steadier than I was. "I already did," I said. She blinked, then stepped in and sat. The next day, I updated the will, typed her name, Maya Whitaker, right beneath mine, right where she belonged. The journal sat beside me, open to the page where her father's name had bled into my margins. I crossed it out, bold, ink smeared, permanent. Later, I asked Ava to take a photo of us, me and Maya, in the backyard, wearing our winter coats and holding mugs like armor. I sent it to Ryan, no caption, just silence with teeth. 3 days passed, then the envelope came, white, unassuming, but heavy, the way guilt sometimes is. Lawsuit, power of attorney petition, filed by Ryan D. Harlow, claiming I was mentally unstable, citing emotional volatility and questionable decisions regarding property and guardianship. There was a clause about the trust, and one about Maya. My hands didn't shake this time. I placed the envelope on the table, sat beside it, and exhaled. Long, quiet, final. Maya came in from her shift, still smelling like thrift store vinyl, and peppermint. Saw the letter, saw my face. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer, just handed her the envelope. She opened it with the same hands that once packed in a panic, read it twice. Then she said, "He's scared of you." I laughed, sharp, brief, real. "He should be." She stepped closer, her eyes glassy but strong. "You're realer than any family I've had." Then, quieter, "Please don't let him take you from me." I looked at her scarf still hanging on the chair, at the mug still warm in my hand, and suddenly, it wasn't a kitchen. It was a courtroom, and a cradle, and a battlefield. All at once. "No one's taking me," I said. "Not this time." That night, I signed the will, lit a candle, placed the photo of us inside the journal, and stood at the mirror again. But this time, I didn't look for myself. I looked for the girl behind me, still wrapped in that scarf, still waiting to see if I'd flinch. I didn't, because family isn't blood. It's who you'd lie for, or burn the world down protecting. Sometimes betrayal doesn't scream. It shows up in envelopes, with government headers and too clean font, with your son's name printed above your own, like a crown he didn't earn, just grabbed. That morning, I met the lawyer. Ava recommended him, young, sharp, the kind who wears sneakers with suits. He called it a clean case of coercion. But I didn't feel clean. I felt scraped out, like someone had redacted me with legal ink. When I told Maya, her reaction was fire and splinters. "He left you. He doesn't get to do this." She paced the hallway like it was a fuse, and she'd already lit both ends. "You paid for that house. You changed that deed. Where was he when you couldn't sleep? When your hands wouldn't stop shaking?" I didn't answer, because my mouth had filled with questions I didn't want her to hear. Later, I sat with the will open again. Ava brought lemon tea, the kind that burns a little going down. I told her about Claire, subpoenaed, Ryan's star witness. "I can't face her again," I whispered. Ava didn't argue. She just squeezed my hand and said, "She's not the same woman anymore. And neither are you." I tried to believe that, tried to breathe like someone who believed that. But that night, I collapsed. Right there in the hallway. No warning. Just floor. Maya found me. She screamed, louder than I've ever heard her. And then, silence. I came to in a hospital room. Smelled like bleach and soft panic. They ran tests, said it was anxiety, fatigue. A body can only carry so much. The nurse said, I wanted to tell her. It wasn't the lawsuit that broke me. It was knowing my son still thinks I belong to him. Maya stayed beside me, didn't ask questions, didn't leave. Later that night, she held up the scarf, the same one she used to sleep with under her cheek. She tucked it over my legs and said, "He doesn't get to erase you." I nodded, tried to smile, failed, then whispered, "But what if I'm tired of fighting?" The next day, Ava visited again, brought a peach from the market, placed it on my tray like an offering. "It's not about the house anymore," she said. "It's about your voice, and who gets to say when it stops mattering." When we got home, the light in the hallway looked different, longer, like it had waited for me. I sat on the edge of the couch, pulled the envelope from my purse, traced the seal. Then I did something foolish. I texted Claire. Not a threat, not a plea, just, "I'm ready, if you are." 2 hours later, she responded, "I want to meet, just us, before court." And just like that, the ground beneath my feet tilted again. It wasn't a courtroom. It was a battlefield with air, where smiles were weapons, and truth came with footnotes. Ryan walked in with a new haircut and a borrowed suit, not the one I remembered, but familiar in that way a wound still remembers the knife. He looked at me like I was a rumor, like history he never claimed. The judge asked his name. He gave it clean, then said, "My mother's unstable. She's been paranoid for years, makes decisions based on emotion, not reason." I didn't flinch, just tightened my grip on the purse in my lap, the one Maya had stitched with her own thread. The prosecutor leaned in. "Do you think she's capable of caring for a minor?" Ryan's voice didn't tremble. That hurt more than if it had. "No, she's impulsive, erratic. She called me once saying someone was following her. There was no one." He didn't mention the night his father came home drunk. Didn't mention the bruises he watched me cover with foundation. Didn't mention the version of himself I raised from silence. Just the version that suited him now. Claire took the stand next. I held my breath, watched her wipe her palms on her slacks before speaking. "I was asked to testify on my son's behalf," she said, "but I can't do that." Murmurs rippled through the room. She looked down, then up. "I didn't raise Ryan. She did, and whatever mistakes she made, they were made while holding him up." The judge nodded once. Ryan blinked, like the air had turned on him. Then it was Ava's turn. She brought the deed, the trust, the photo of me and Maya in our coats, holding chipped mugs like armor. She said, "I've known Eleanor for 25 years. She's more lucid than most people I know. She didn't lose her mind. She finally used it." Maya stood last, shaky at first, then steady. She pulled a folded paper from her coat, one I'd never seen. "My journal," she said. "I wrote this the night I hid in her attic." She read. She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't ask me to go. She just made space. And sometimes, that's the rarest kind of love. The courtroom didn't move. Even the stenographer paused. The judge looked at me, then at Ryan. "Case dismissed. Guardianship intact. Trust remains with Ms. Harlow. Full legal rights restored." Gavel. Just a sound, but it hit like thunder. Outside, Ryan didn't speak, didn't argue. He just walked away, not defeated like a child, but like a man who'd bet on a ghost and lost. Back home, I broke. Not because I was angry, but because I still loved him. That's the cruel part. Love doesn't vanish. It just learns how to survive disappointment. I sat by the window, same scarf in my lap, unfolded like a flag I no longer had to wave. Then headlights. Slow, familiar. A knock. I opened the door. Claire, undone. Jacket too thin. She looked smaller than I remembered. "Can I stay a few nights?" she asked. Her eyes darted to the scarf, then down. "My lease ended. Ryan didn't tell me he moved out." And just like that, the woman who once vanished now stood on my porch, homeless, human, and maybe not so different from the girl I once was. The thing about letting ghosts in is they don't knock twice. They just cross the threshold like they still live there, like the house owes them memory. Let Claire stay. 1 night, maybe 2. No drawers, no questions, no past. I offered the couch and an extra blanket that still smelled like Maya's hair conditioner. She didn't thank me, just nodded, like guilt had a curfew. Maya didn't speak to her. Didn't speak to me either. She moved through the kitchen like everything was glass, set down mugs too gently, shut cabinets too slow. Then finally, she gets the couch but not the trust. I said nothing, just watched the steam from her cup rise like a warning I didn't listen to. That night, Claire washed dishes that weren't hers, folded towels she hadn't used, set the table like she was trying to earn rent in chores. You don't have to do all this, I said. She paused. Didn't look up. I stayed quiet when Ryan lied. I thought silence was safer. A fork slipped from her hand into the sink. The clang was louder than her voice. For 2 days, the house held its breath. 3 women under one roof, and no one exhaled. Maya took longer showers. Claire drank her tea by the back door. And I kept my purse under my arm, even inside the house, because forgiveness is one thing, but trust has bones. Then, just past midnight, a sound, not a crash, not a scream, just paper being touched. I walked down the hallway barefoot. Door cracked. Light on. Maya stood frozen in the study, one hand on a drawer, the other on her chest. She's reading your papers, Maya whispered, then louder. She's going through your things. Claire turned. Her hands were empty, but her face wasn't. I wasn't. I didn't mean. I stepped in, pulled the desk drawer open. Inside, a second deed. Different font, Ryan's signature. My name misspelled. A date that never happened. Claire held out a folded note. I found it in my suitcase, she said. He must have slipped it in. He forged it. He wanted everything, even your past. Silence. No shouting. No collapse. Just 3 women and the weight of one man's ghost. I took the fake deed, placed it beside the real one, felt the difference like skin versus scar tissue. Claire backed away. Maya didn't. She picked up the scarf from the chair, the one Claire had used as a pillow, and held it like evidence. Then she whispered, not to Claire, but to me, next time, don't open the door. But I did, and maybe this time, I opened it wide enough for truth to come in too. Truth is ugliest when it arrives in your son's handwriting. The ink was too straight, the signature too bold. He even forged the slant of my L, the one he used to trace on birthday cards. The lawyer confirmed it. Definitely doctored, he said, tapping the corner with a red pen, intent to defraud. It won't hold up in court. But that wasn't the part that broke me. It was the idea that Ryan had learned to mimic me, just not love me. I tightened the trust, added security clauses, named Ava's firm as took Maya with me to sign the papers. She didn't say anything, just clutched the purse I gave her last Christmas. The one she only used when something was sacred. When we got home, Claire was folding laundry that didn't belong to her. I watched her smooth a shirt I hadn't worn in months. The gesture was too careful, like she thought fabric could forgive her. I confirmed it. I said, Ryan forged the deed. She nodded, once. Then I added, you're not the enemy anymore. Just a reminder. Her eyes didn't water, but something in her posture sagged, like she'd been waiting for a sentence, and that one fit. Maya asked to walk the dog. We don't have a dog. I let her go anyway. When she came back, she sat beside Claire. Not close, not warm, but not across the room either. I still don't trust you, she said. Claire nodded. But I see you now. That was the closest we got to peace that day. That night, I opened the will again, not to change names, but to add words, personal ones. Next to Maya's, I wrote, you saved me with silence, with tea, with stubbornness. I hope the world never wears you down. Next to Ava's, you reminded me of who I was before survival became my job. I stared at Ryan's name, then crossed it out. Once, slowly, no anger, just inked out the next morning. Ava didn't answer her phone, didn't show up for breakfast at the cafe like she always did. We found her at home, blanket tucked, coffee cup half finished, peaceful, gone. Claire drove me to the funeral home. Maya stayed behind, said she couldn't handle another goodbye, but when we came back, there was a letter taped to the fridge. No envelope, just Ava's handwriting. Maya read it out loud. Her voice cracked only once. You broke the cycle. That's enough. Don't ask for more than that. Let the next generation just live. She folded it, pressed it to her chest. Didn't speak for the rest of the night. Later, I made soup. Stirred slowly. Let the onions brown, just the way Ava liked. Claire set the table without asking. Even lit a candle. And when Maya walked in, she didn't flinch. She just pulled the scarf tighter around her shoulders, the same one Claire had slept on, and said, can we eat like normal people? Just tonight, we did. 3 women. No blood between us, but enough history to drown in. Just as I was about to turn out the lights, there it was, a letter. No stamp. No return address. Just my name, in his handwriting. On the back, a smudge of something red. Maybe wine. Maybe regret. I held it. Didn't open it. Not yet. because forgiveness should never be rushed, especially when it's been forged once before. Some letters aren't meant to be opened, they're meant to be survived. I opened his anyway. That wasn't an apology. It was a weather report of blame. Every sentence pointed east, toward me. His words were jagged. You rewrote history. You made me the villain. Not once did he say mother, only her. I stared at it until the ink blurred, not from tears, but from rage so old it had grown quiet. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and set it on the windowsill beside the dead orchid Ava once loved. It could rot there, for all I cared. That night, I sat in the kitchen. No lights, just fridge, hum, and memory. I dialed his number. It rang, and rang. Then the tone. My voice didn't shake. This is the last time you'll hear from me. I raised you in storms, carried you through rooms I couldn't breathe in, and you still called me unstable. You were the one I would have died for. Now I choose to live. I ended the call before the beep. Didn't want him to know how loud the silence felt after. Claire left the next morning. No goodbye, no coffee, just an empty couch and a folded note on the table. Thank you for not shutting the door. I hope someday someone does the same for you. I sat with it for a while, then slid it into my purse, the same one I clutched during the hearing. Its zipper still stuck where Maya's thread caught last winter. That night, Maya and I ate leftovers. Curry too spicy, rice too cold. We laughed anyway, the kind of laugh that stings at first, then frees something in your chest. You remember when you tried to bake cookies and used salt instead of sugar? She said, only because you told me it was flour. I shot back. She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. Later, I went to the fireplace, lit a match, held it over his letter, watched the flames take their time, like even the fire didn't want to touch his words. Then I pulled out the old family photo, the one he mailed me when he first left, with that stupid caption, for the fridge. I burned that to dot the edges, curled like secrets. The faces vanished the next morning. I wore white, not for purity, but for protest. Went to the courthouse, stood in line behind a teenager applying for a learner's permit. When it was my turn, I said, I'm here to change my name. The clerk raised an eyebrow, to what I exhaled. Not shaky. Certain. Nora Fields. No more Eleanor. No more signatures he could forge. No more history he could bend to fit his own myth. I walked out into the sun. Maya waited on the steps, arms crossed, scarf tucked under her chin. Fields, she asked. It was my grandmother's name, I said. She sewed her initials into every apron she owned. Every time life knocked her down, she stitched something new. Maya nodded. Feels right. The wind picked up just enough to lift my hair, to scatter ash from the fireplace. Still stuck to my sleeve. I didn't brush it off, just watched it float, like something once heavy, finally letting go. Some letters aren't meant to be opened, they're meant to be survived. I opened his anyway. It wasn't an apology. It was a weather report of blame. Every sentence pointed east, toward me. His words were jagged. You rewrote history. You made me the villain. Not once did he say mother, only her. I stared at it until the ink blurred. Not from tears but from rage so old it had grown quiet. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and set it on the windowsill beside the dead orchid Ava once loved. It could rot there, for all I cared. That night, I sat in the kitchen, no lights, just fridge, hum, and memory. I dialed his number. It rang, and rang. Then the tone. My voice didn't shake. This is the last time you'll hear from me. I raised you in storms, carried you through rooms I couldn't breathe in, and you still called me unstable. You were the one I would have died for. Now I choose to live. I ended the call before the beep. Didn't want him to know how loud the silence felt after. Claire left the next morning. No goodbye, no coffee, just an empty couch and a folded note on the table. Thank you for not shutting the door. I hope someday someone does the same for you. I sat with it for a while, then slid it into my purse, the same one I clutched during the hearing. Its zipper still stuck where Maya's thread caught last winter. That night, Maya and I ate leftovers. Curry, too spicy. Rice too cold. We laughed anyway. The kind of laugh that stings at first, then frees something in your chest. You remember when you tried to bake cookies and used salt instead of sugar? She said. Only because you told me it was flour. I shot back. She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. Later, I went to the fireplace, lit a match, held it over his letter, watched the flames take their time, like even the fire didn't want to touch his words. Then, I pulled out the old family photo, the one he mailed me when he first left, with that stupid caption, "For the fridge." I burned that to dot the edges, curled like secrets. The faces vanished last dot the next morning. I wore white, not for purity, but for protest, went to the courthouse, stood in line behind a teenager applying for a learner's permit. When it was my turn, I said, "I'm here to change my name." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "To what?" I exhaled. "Not shaky. Certain. Double quotes. Nora Fields. No more Eleanor. No more signatures he could forge. No more history he could bend to fit his own myth." I walked out into the sun. Maya waited on the steps, arms crossed, scarf tucked under her chin. "Fields?" she asked. "It was my grandmother's name," I said. She sewed her initials into every apron she owned. Every time life knocked her down, she stitched something new. Maya nodded. "Feels right." The wind picked up just enough to lift my hair, to scatter ash from the fireplace, still stuck to my sleeve. I didn't brush it off, just watched it float like something once heavy, finally letting go. Some letters aren't meant to be opened, they're meant to be survived. I opened his anyway. That wasn't an apology. It was a weather report of blame. Every sentence pointed east, toward me. His words were jagged. "You rewrote history. You made me the villain." Not once did he say, "Mother," only, "her." I stared at it until the ink blurred, not from tears, but from rage so old it had grown quiet. Then, I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and set it on the windowsill beside the dead orchid. Ava once loved it, could rot there, for all I cared. That night, I sat in the kitchen. No lights, just fridge hum and memory. I dialed his number, it rang, and rang. Then the tone, my voice didn't shake. "This is the last time you'll hear from me. I raised you in storms, carried you through rooms I couldn't breathe in, and you still called me unstable. You were the one I would have died for. Now I choose to live." I ended the call before the beep. Didn't want him to know how loud the silence felt after Claire left the next morning. No goodbye, no coffee, just an empty couch and a folded note on the table. "Thank you for not shutting the door. I hope someday someone does the same for you." I sat with it for a while, then slid it into my purse, the same one I clutched during the hearing. Its zipper still stuck where Maya's thread caught last winter. That night, Maya and I ate leftovers, curry too spicy, rice too cold. We laughed, anyway. The kind of laugh that stings at first, then frees something in your chest. "You remember when you tried to bake cookies and used salt instead of sugar," she said. "Only because you told me it was flour," I shot back. She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. Later, I went to the fireplace, lit a match, held it over his letter, watched the flames take their time. Like even, the fire didn't want to touch his words. Then I pulled out the old family photo, the one he mailed me when he first left, with that stupid caption, "For the fridge." I burned that too. The edges curled like secrets. The faces vanished last. The next morning, I wore white. Not for purity, but for protest. Went to the courthouse, stood in line behind a teenager applying for a learner's permit. When it was my turn, I said, "I'm here to change my name." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "To what?" I exhaled. "Not shaky. Certain. Double quotes. Nora Fields. No more Eleanor. No more signatures he could forge. No more history he could bend to fit his own myth." I walked out into the sun. Maya waited on the steps, arms crossed, scarf tucked under her chin. "Fields?" she asked. "It was my grandmother's name," I said. She sewed her initials into every apron she owned. Every time life knocked her down, she stitched something new. Maya nodded. "Feels right." The wind picked up just enough to lift my hair, to scatter ash from the fireplace, still stuck to my sleeve. I didn't brush it off, just watched it float like something once heavy, finally letting go. They say when a woman changes her name, she disappears. Let them say I vanished. The truth is, I arrived my license, said Nora Fields now. Not Eleanor, not anyone's mother by label, just mine by choice. Maya stuck it on the fridge like a child's report card, straight and proud. "You passed," she said, handing me a single candle and a cupcake. I laughed, but when I blew it out, something inside me stayed lit. There was no crowd, just Maya, a half-melted wax one, and a note in glitter pen, "Happy rebirthday." I hadn't had a cake since Ryan was 12. He'd smeared the frosting on his nose and told me I was too serious. He wasn't wrong, but this time, I smiled without needing to. 2 days later, a letter came, from Claire. No return address. Just simple handwriting and 2 sentences. "Thank you for the couch. And for letting me leave without shame." That was her goodbye. And it was enough. I started showing up at Ava's thrift store again. Only now, the keys were mine. The bells still jingled the same. The smell of old books still filled the aisles. But the owner plaque now read Enfields. Sometimes healing sounds like hangers scraping a rack. Sometimes it smells like lavender sachets and second chances. On Tuesdays, I'd rearrange the front window, put scarves where shoes had been, hung a new arrivals sign over last decade's denim. It felt good, giving worn-out things a new home. That night, I pulled out a notebook Ava once gave me. She'd inscribed the inside, "Write like no one's watching," because for a while no one was. I flipped to the first page, and finally let my hand move. "I am not extra. I am home." The next morning, Maya stood by the counter. Held the deed in one hand, a cup of coffee in the other. She didn't say much, just placed it in front of me. 2 names, side by side, not above, not below, mine and hers, Fields and Fields. She tapped the paper once. "Looks official," she said. Then, after a beat, "Mom." That word, it hit softer than any scream I'd survived, and yet, somehow louder. I didn't respond right away, just covered her hand with mine, felt the warmth, felt the shift. That night, I walked through the house with the lights off, no creaks, no ghosts, just the hum of a home, finally, exhaling. In the living room. I passed the fireplace. Ash still clung to the corners. Ryan's letter, his photo gone now. And in their place, a new frame. Empty. On purpose, because sometimes you don't need proof, just peace. I stood in the doorway for a while, one hand on the wall like it might remember who I was. And for the first time, it didn't echo Eleanor Bach. It just stayed quiet, which is how I knew. They say women belong to the homes they keep. I didn't just keep this house. I survived in it, named its shadows, rewired its ghosts, and somehow it kept me too. This morning, I stepped outside barefoot. The grass was still wet, cool, soft, alive. It used to feel like something I had to mow. Now it felt like something that knew my name. A bee circled the hydrangeas. The wind made the mailbox rattle. And for the first time in years, I noticed a crack in the front step shaped like a question mark. I almost laughed. Inside, Maya was asleep, scarf hanging from the chair again like a flag. I didn't wake her, just went to the mantel and swapped the empty frame, inserted a photo of us, shoulder to shoulder, mid-laugh flower, on both our faces. We weren't looking at the camera, we were looking at each other. That felt like the truest part. The next envelope came with no return. Address. Of course, Ryan's handwriting hadn't changed, neither had his timing. I didn't even bring it inside, just stood over the fire pit, held it for a moment, not to read, but to remember who I no longer was. Then, I lit a match, let the flames eat the corners first. The envelope curled, cracked, vanished. No scream, no ashes to save. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of a whiteboard. Library. Basements smelled like old paper and forgotten teenage dreams. I taught a writing class to 6 women and 1 nervous high schoolboy. Today's prompt: what do you call yourself when no one's looking? Most wrote for 20 minutes. 1 cried the whole time. I stayed after 2 sweep crumbs from the floor. A woman named Esther gave me a tea bag in a Ziploc and said, I reminded her of her mother. I told her, I hope that's a good thing, she said. She was mean, but honest. So yes, I laughed the whole drive home. The local paper ran a story. Woman reclaims name, rewrites life. They took the photo from outside the thrift store, the day I hung the help wanted sign but forgot to wear shoes. My hair was wild. My smile wasn't. I clipped it anyway. Tucked it into the same journal Ava gave me, the one where I'd written, I am not extra, I am home. That night, I brewed coffee at 5 p.m., just because it felt good to smell something warm. I sat outside on the porch, watched the sun bleed down behind the hills like it was tired to no music, no phone, no ghost letters waiting in the dark, just me and the steam curling above the rim of the mug. I didn't plan to cry, but when Maya slipped out and sat beside me, didn't speak, just reached for my hand, I felt something melt under my ribs. She leaned her head on my shoulder, said nothing for 5 minutes, then quietly, I think this house chose you. I didn't answer, just pressed a kiss to her hair, because she was right, and maybe I wasn't the anchor dragging everyone down, maybe I was the foundation all along. The sun dipped lower, the porch light flicked on. I walked back inside, past the new frame on the mantel, the one with the flower. And laughter. Paused. Exhaled. Then whispered to the house, I'm not leaving again, because I wasn't just home, I was the reason it felt like one.